Motivational Mondays is the perfect way to set the tone for your week. Everyone can use motivation. Mondays are amazing, rich with opportunities, full of potential, and now motivational. Your week begins here. Good Monday morning. My name is Genevieve Jones-Wright. I am the founder and lead empower mentor of Motivation.In.Action, or MIA. And this morning, we are finishing up our Women History Month themed conversations for Motivational Mondays with the incredible, the beautiful, and the multi-talented Angela DeJoseph. Thank you so much for being here this morning with us.
Good morning, Genevieve. It's so great to be here. I'm very excited. And you getting me up on a Monday morning and getting me to get myself together is something.
Well, I can tell you that I could not have this themed conversation for Motivational Mondays without you. You were one of the first women that I thought about because you are what I consider a girl's girl. You are so supportive of other women and you are just an amazing inspiration. So on that note, yes. So on that note, we just jump right in. You are the founder of Women of Color Roar Media. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you do?
I can tell you that it's a tremendous blessing. And my mother was born in Trinidad, my father in Grenada. And if you know anything about immigrant people, when they come to America, they have high expectations. And so they want their children to excel and they bring their children here. And so I grew up, in a family of people who excelled, and I was more on the artistic side. And so I was a writer from early age and began writing and ended up getting a job at Essence Magazine in my 20s as an editor and moving to New York City. But Women of Color Roar is sort of a culmination of all of, the things I've done in my career, because I was able to put on an event, also honor Black women who I truly think needed to be lifted up and admired. I wanted, young women of color, particularly Black girls, to know you can rise up and you can become a senator, you can be the governor, you can be the president. And I wanted them to know that the way to do it is to start by making relationships and opening their eyes. If you don't see it, you can't be it. And so by giving them a chance to see these brilliant women, like Dr. Shirley Weber, who at the time was our assembly member, Monica Montgomery, yourself, seeing women in positions that are doing these things. These young girls are in high school. I mean, when I was in high school, I didn't know anything about that. But to be able to know, I can, that's a job I can do. And then to teach them, this is how you do it. So that was really the birth of Women of Color Roar.
And you really do offer those opportunities. I have not missed one Women of Color Roar breakfast, whether it was live in person or virtual. And I know that you offer young ladies scholarships and you encourage them in the in-person event to walk around and meet some of the women who are there in these elected positions. The last one that was virtual, you had us in small groups. And so you really do create these opportunities for these young women to see themselves and also engage with people who may be where they aspire to be.
Exactly. And I want to thank you very much for hosting one of the breakout rooms. And I know there were so many people who were like, I want to be in Genevieve's room because I'm interested in law. And I'm like, yeah, go ahead. We'll put you in that room.
So you mentioned a little bit of your Trinidadian roots. And if anyone follows you on social media, they probably think that your last name is Trinidad. You are a proud Trinidadian. And I know you spoke a little bit about it, but I really wanted to kind of get into your upbringing. I think your brothers have an amazing story. You come from a great family with a great legacy, but I really want to get into your origin story and really what made Angela DeJoseph the person she is today.
Well, my parents are from, it's basically a third world country, and grew up in it's a different kind of poverty that we don't really know here, where they went through really harsher times than we've ever personally had to endure. And my father, he was in Guab, Grenada, it's like up in the country of the island of Grenada. There was only one pair of shoes between him and his brother. So one day he wore the shoes and went to school, and the other day his brother wore the shoes and went to school. And my mother, also was having to go to work early in life. So both of them had to leave school to support the family. And so education was extremely important to them, and they really wanted their children to have a good education. And so they came to America, and my brothers were way ahead of the students in America. And so they got promoted. So my oldest brother, Michael, he went to Harvard at 16, to an Ivy League school. My other brother went to Dartmouth at 15. He's a Rhodes Scholar. He's a Fulbright Scholar. My oldest brother is a medical doctor and has also an MPH and computer science. I mean, so we have these whizzes. And then my youngest brother and I are, like I said, we're more on the artistic side. And so my youngest brother, he writes books and does that. And then, and I've been in television. And in media, being excellent in all that you do was instilled in us at an early age. And so even though I didn't take the academic route of my brothers, I still, had an opportunity at a young age to go work at a national magazine. I worked on television. I've had, great opportunities because of, I think, that striving for excellence.
I came across something you posted recently on Facebook, and it was an amazing picture with you and the extraordinary Michael Jordan. And I said, well, I'm going to have to talk with her about that. What was going on in that picture?
That was actually a press conference, but I met Michael Jordan when he first came to the league in Chicago. And so if I say I dated him, people go, oh my, it wasn't like that, it wasn't his girlfriend or anything like that, but I did go out with him. Yes. And spend time with him. And he came over my house and I met his mother, met my mother and I met his mother and, that kind of thing. But, so I was doing public relations for Johnson Products Company. And that was a press conference where we were announcing that Michael was going to be a brand ambassador. And so I was the PR person. And in that picture, he's in the picture with me. And, and it was a lot of, those were like really great, fun years. And like I said, I had a lot of opportunities. I went to Johnson Products and was the associate director of public relations and special projects. And again, I was in my early 20s, and so, and I didn't know that how extraordinary these opportunities were at the time, that for me to have gotten those positions, I didn't really know. Now I know, but it was a tremendous opportunity for me. I learned a lot. And again, it was the same thing. It was, I went up to the president of the company. I saw him at an event in New York, and I was working at Essence Magazine at the time. I went up and I told him I was interested in coming to Chicago and helping his company. And and they said, and he introduced me to the director of that department who was looking for someone. And I wrote an article that was in Essence Magazine about Johnson Products. So I learned about the company, and they moved me to Chicago and gave me the job.
Nice. All right. So got to ask you about Miss Cheryl Lee Ralph. You have blessed us here in San Diego at Women of Color Roar with having amazing people come and speak to us, whether it is through a video message honoring your honorees, but we actually had the epic Cheryl Lee Ralph in the house with us. Can we talk about that sisterhood?
Yes, I've known Cheryl Lee, I'll just say the sandbox. but I was in Hollywood and I got to know her, and she I saw her doing a play, and she was so extraordinary because someone was absent that night, and she filled in for them in the play, but she didn't know the play. So she literally had the book in her hand during the whole play, and she was, and then even sang a song. And afterward I went up and I told her, I said, I told her she was amazing and she was, going to be a big star or whatever. So yeah, I called it. But anyway, but then of course, years later, she was on Broadway, getting a Tony nomination and Dreamgirls. And Shirley is bigger than life. I mean, she's like one of these people whose talent is so big that she could only be in show business. Well, Shirley Ralph also is a philanthropist, and she has and an activist. So she has been doing Divas Simply Singing for over 30 years. I was at the very first one, and she brings together all of these amazing Black women singers, and they do this fundraiser for HIV/AIDS. She was one of the first people in our community to bring attention to HIV and the crisis and raise money for it. And she's been doing that for 30 years. And then as an activist, she's politically active in getting out the vote and getting people to understand the importance of voting. And so our paths crossed and then came back together when, I started Women of Color Roar, and I called her up and I said, I really have to come down here. And she came, and she actually got a part in a movie and was supposed to fly out that day, but she said, no, I promised Angela I was going to come. So she came down here, and she did Women of Color Roar for us.
What a friend. That is something that only a sister and a friend would do. I feel like a lot of people see you and they just see this fabulous, beautiful, confident woman, and you're all of those things. But one thing that I want to do with Motivational Mondays is really show the story behind the success. And you talked to us a little bit about your origin story, but I was talking with Councilmember Montgomery Stepp last week about how people can look at where you are now and assume some things. And you and I were talking, and you talked about how you were not allowed to feel pretty or attractive growing up. And I think this is something that could help someone. So can you just talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think that people judge us so much on our outward appearance. And so, one of the things when I was growing up, my mother did not want me to be conceited. And so I never got complimented on how I looked. And so I grew up feeling that I did not knowing that I was attractive or pretty or anything. And so when people, didn't like me because I thought I was cute, well, I didn't think I was cute because I didn't know I was cute. Now I can look back at pictures of myself now and go, damn, I was cute, but I didn't know I didn't, because I didn't own it. And I had low self-esteem. And on top of that, my parents broke up when I was very young, like 3 years old. And my mother moved to California with me and worked very hard to support us. And so we had very little. And now I didn't know I was poor. It wasn't until I got to high school when I saw, because I lived in an area of Los Angeles next to Los Feliz with a lot of very wealthy people. And I was in an area where, Black people lived that were poor. But when I went to their houses, and I never saw, these big houses with gates and, waterfalls in the backyard. And it was, and I didn't have anything really growing up. We had very, very little. And so, I never even got my high school yearbook because my mother didn't have the money. So when people see me and they perceive that I've always had it made and every door just swung open for me, that wasn't what it was at all. Wasn't like that. And I never, ever walked around thinking I was all that. I was actually very introverted. And so I actually took an improv comedy class, and I started doing improv comedy. And now I talk to people now. I go over and talk to people, and I can, make jokes and be funny. And it helped me overcome, that fear I had of that people would reject me or I wasn't good enough. And so now I have to work at it. Sometimes I still feel a little bit like this, but I have to force myself to go over and let people know that, hey, I'm just like you.
That's really interesting that you brought up the improv comedy, because we had a conversation here a couple of weeks ago with Colleen Cusack as part of the Women's History themed conversation. And she talks about doing comedy improv to help her as a therapeutic aid in her life because of all of the trauma that she deals with, and also to help her prepare for trials. So I'm starting to think more people need to get into improv to help them overcome some things, to help them get through some things. So that's awesome. What is the takeaway? What would you like to leave our viewers with on this Monday morning? Maybe there is a woman who hasn't found her way to roar yet. Maybe there is a young lady who is not feeling self-confident. What is the message you would have for anyone who's watching today on this morning?
There are two things that I really would like for women to know. One is every no is closer to a yes. And when I learned that, it changed everything. So when somebody says no, you just keep coming back, and you prepare and you work harder and you come from a different angle, and it works out. I had a situation with a television show that I wanted to be on, and they were no, 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 no. And I kept calling the producer, and one day she said yes, and I went, oh, and I was on that show then for years, on this television show. So no, don't let rejection stop you. And I had an ex-boyfriend, we called him Captain Persistent, because he wrote like 26 scripts for television shows before he ever got a job in television. And so, you have to keep going if it's what you really want. Don't get deterred. And the other thing is that, you are enough. And so if it's not being recognized, then you need to go somewhere else where it is. So don't ever think that this person's opinion is really better than your opinion. So it's like, you're fabulous. You're incredible. You're smart. You can do everything. And so if they don't recognize it, or, that's on them. You go to where people recognize it and appreciate who you are, and you will find the right place for you, and you will find the place, because God created you and gave you those skills. And don't like, when I walked around turning down the dimmer switch because I didn't want people to be not like me. And then somebody said, turn it up. God had it up. Turn it up. Be bright. Be bold. And if it's too bright, people got to get sunglasses.
Oh man, you have heard it right here on this Monday morning. Do not dim your lights. God created you fabulously and wonderfully. And if somebody can't take your shine because it's too bright for them, then just go ahead and tell them to get some sunglasses. And Mr. Joseph told us that every no is closer to a yes. So be persistent, keep going. I love that. Thank you so much. I know that people are going to jumpstart their week because of your story and because of what you just said in a magnificent way. So thank you so very much for being here with us on this Monday morning. Everyone, tune in next week as we jumpstart April, which is National Poetry Month, with Ms. Elise Smith Cooper. So I will see you all next week. Thank you so very much, Angela. You are just amazing.
Thank you so much. And so are you.
Thank you so much for joining us for this week's Motivational Mondays. I'm going to see you next week, same time, same place, right here, with more inspiration to help you jumpstart your week. Now, if you found this week's conversation inspirational or motivational in any way, maybe you got a gem to carry with you throughout the day or the week, please feel free to like, comment, and share. Because remember, everyone can use some motivation. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. I'll see you next week.